awethu awethu matla ya rona all power oh hinde lendlela esihambayo oh hinde lendlela esihambayo oh hinde lendlela esihambayo oh hinde lendlela esihambayo washumandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana ne-freedom day washumandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-freedom oh hinde lendlela esihambayo oh hinde lendlela esihambayo oh hinde lendlela esihambayo oh hinde lendlela esihambayo washumandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-freedom day washumandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-freedom hinde lendlela esihambayo hinde lendlela esihambayo hinde lendlela esihambayo hinde lendlela esihambayo washumandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-freedom day washumandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-freedom day hinde lendlela esihambayo hinde lendlela esihambayo hinde lendlela esihambayo oh hinde lendlela esihambayo amandla awethu siyabonga. Thank you very much, Mphathi wohlelo, Deputy President of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, former Deputy President of the ANC and the Deputy President of the country, Comrade Kgalema Motlanthe, the National Chairperson of the ANC, the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General, the Treasurer General of the ANC, the Alliance leadership, members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, the ANC leagues, all of them, the Women's League, the ANC Youth League, and the Veterans League, MKMVA, our friends who are with us today on our big day when we celebrate our birthday. Comrades, compatriots, and friends from Africa and the world. We meet 100 years since the promulgation of the 1913 Land Act, which dramatically robbed the indigenous people of our country of 87% of their land and turned them into pariahs and wanderers in the land of their birth. We mark 100 years of the seat of power, the Union Buildings in Tshwane, which was a center of oppression and discrimination until the dawn of freedom in 1994, when it became a symbol of democracy, hope, peace, unity, progress, and development. It is 100 years since Charlotte Maxeke organized women to protest against the past laws in the Free State. It is 90 years since the introduction of the Native Urban Areas Act of 1923, or PASS laws, which designated all urban areas in the country as white areas. Black men had to carry permits or passes to be in town. We celebrate 70 years since the adoption of the landmark human rights document, the African Claims, in South Africa at the 1943 National Conference of the ANC. 65 years ago, the National Party came to power on the 26th May 1948, marking the formal introduction of apartheid. This served to institutionalize racism, segregation, and the dehumanization of black people. It is 60 years since the promulgation of the Bantu Education Act of 1953, which created a separate and inferior education system for black children in South Africa to serve the interests of white supremacy. It is 50 years since the Rivonia trial, which resulted in long-term imprisonment for members of the MK High Command. We mark 15 years since the establishment of the Organization of African Unity, which fought tirelessly to free this continent from colonialism and racism, and to unite the African people. It is 40 years since the Durban strikes of 1973, which reignited the fighting spirit of our people. 30 years ago, the Republic of South Africa Constitution Act was introduced in 1983, creating the tricameral parliament, an attempt by the apartheid colonial regime to undermine the unity of the oppressed. It is 30 years since the formation of the United Democratic Front in the Mitchell's Plain in Cape Town, uniting the masses of our people behind the ANC to hasten the dawn of freedom. We celebrate 25 years since the ending of South Africa's administration of Southwest Africa and the granting of independence to our sister nation of Namibia, thus opening the door to the liberation of our own country. This year commemorates 20 years since the brutal assassination of Comrade Chris Hani, the former General Secretary of the South African Communist Party and NEC member of the ANC, a painful attempt to derail our march to freedom. We celebrate 20 years since the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to our former president, Isitwalande Nelson Mandela, who remains a symbol of peace, unity, and reconciliation in our country. And today, we proudly celebrate 101 years of the African National Congress, the oldest liberation movement in the continent, which brought about freedom and democracy in our country. The 53rd National Conference of the ANC in Mangaung deliberated at length about the impact of this racist legacy, which resulted in the persistent poverty, inequality, and unemployment in our country. As we enter the second phase of the transition from apartheid colonialism to a national democratic society, we commit ourselves to a program of action to speed up the elimination of this legacy and bring about socio-economic freedom. Comrades, the ANC has since 1994 made substantial progress in consolidating democracy, achieving political stability, extending basic services, and promoting respect for values and various freedoms that are enshrined in the Constitution. We recall that our country's Constitution, which is one of the greatest achievements of our liberation movement and our country, has its roots in the key ANC human rights documents, such as the 1923 Bill of Rights, the 1943 African Claims, and the 1955 Freedom Charter. In this regard, we call on ANC members and citizens of this country to celebrate, promote, and defend the country's constitution at all times. We also urge ANC members and all our people to honor the country's national symbols, which define who we are as people. Compatriots, our economy continues to face skewed patterns of ownership and production. It is characterized by inequality, dualism, and marginalization. In addition, the monopoly domination of the economy is an obstacle to the goals of economic transformation, growth, and development. As we said in Polokwane, decisive action is required to thoroughly and urgently transform the economic patterns of the present in order to realize our vision for the future. Given the realities in our country, we opted for a mixed economy where public, private, cooperatives, and other forms of social ownership complement each other in an integrated way. Within this mixed economy, we reaffirm the active and interventionist role of the state in ensuring economic development. It must be a state that has the capacity to intervene in the economy to lead development. The promotion of diversity is also pivotal. In this regard, we'll open up space for more Black South Africans and more women to participate in the economy. This participation must be as employees, as creators of jobs, and importantly, as owners of the means of production. These goals we shall achieve through a range of measures contained in our development blueprint, the National Development Plan. The plan sets out various methods to tackle unemployment, poverty, inequality, and other challenges facing our country. We urge all South Africans to unite behind the National Development Plan and work with government to eradicate poverty, reduce unemployment, and eliminate inequality by 2030. Some of the key programs of the National Development Plan are already being implemented. These include the new growth path framework with its major infrastructure development program, as well as the state-led industrial policy. The Infrastructure Development Plan has introduced the national and central coordination of the building of dams, roads, bridges, power stations, schools, hospitals, 2 new universities, and other infrastructure that will change the landscape of our country and the lives of our people. We call on government to hasten the implementation of all 18 strategic infrastructure projects, especially those directed at the 23 poorest districts in the country. The projects include, on the 23 districts, including some projects in the 23 districts will ensure the provision of water, electricity, and sanitation, and will change the lives of approximately 19 million people. A few of the districts that will benefit are John, Taolo, Gaetsewe, and Northern Cape, Ngaka Modiri, Molema, and Ruth Mumpati, and Northwest, Mopani, Greater Sekhukhune, Capricorn and Vembe in Limpopo, in Zululand, Amajuba, Uthugela, Sisonke and Oku from southern Natal, Ehlanzeni from Mpumalanga, Adfrenzo, O.R. Tambo, Chris Hani, Amatole and Ukahlamba from the Eastern Cape and Kharib in the Free State. The ANC government must also hasten the supply of water to 1.4 million households and of sanitation to 2.1 million households that are still without these basic needs. The eradication of mud schools and the refurbishment of more than 2,000 schools and 886 health facilities nationwide must also be concluded as part of the infrastructure program. We call on the private sector to participate actively in the infrastructure program. It provides an opportunity to partner with our government for sustainable development and job creation. Comrades, mining has historically been the backbone of our economy and should still contribute meaningfully to our economic development. We call on the ANC government to place the state mining company at the forefront of state intervention in the mining sector. We have also resolved that the state must capture an equitable share of mineral resources rents through the tax system and deploy them in the interest of long-term economic growth, development, and infrastructure. Government must implement this resolution. Importantly, the extraction of minerals should not disadvantage workers, local communities, or the environment. Mining should create safe and decent jobs. In this regard, the ANC has directed the fast-tracking of the work of the Special Presidential Package Initiative designed to improve the living and working conditions of workers in key mining towns following the unfortunate Marikana tragedy. We call on all role players, government, labor, business, and the community sector to work together to make this special project to succeed. Comrades and compatriots, as outlined, the year 2013 marks the centenary of the 1913 Land Act. The words of our first Secretary General, Comrade Sol Plaatje, have special resonance when it comes to this matter. He said, and I quote, "Awakening on Friday morning, June 20, 1913, the South African native found himself not actually a slave, but a pariah in the land of his birth." Unquote. In 1994, we inherited this highly inequitable distribution of land ownership. 87% of the commercial arable land was owned by white farmers and businesses, and 13% of arid was in the hands of the African majority. We state categorically that the Land Act marked the beginning of all the problems we face today, such as landlessness, poverty, and inequality. Land was taken away from the African people in order to turn them into a cheap reservoir of labor. Overnight, people who had land and cattle suddenly had nothing and lost their self-reliance, dignity, and independence. This historical injustice must be addressed in order to complete our freedom. Former ANC President Dr. A.B. Zuma outlined the importance of land in his December 1941 presidential address. He said, and I quote, "The fundamental basis of all wealth and power is the ownership and acquisition of freehold title to land. From land, we derive our existence. We derive our wealth in minerals, food, and other essentials. On land, we build our homes. Without land, we cannot exist. To all men, of whatever race or color, land, therefore, is essential for their wealth, prosperity, and health. Without land rights, any race will be doomed to poverty, destitution, ill health, and lack of all life essentials." Unquote. At the 52nd National Conference in Polokwane, we committed ourselves to transfer 30% of the 82 million hectares of agricultural land, which was white-owned in 1994, to black people by 2014. The ANC government is unlikely to meet this target given the slow pace of land reform. We have directed our government to urgently speed up the process through a variety of measures. The implementation of these measures will take into account the principles contained in the Constitution in relation to land expropriation. We will replace the principle of willing buyer, willing seller, which has not sufficiently addressed the problem. With the just and equitable principle when expropriating land for land reform purposes. In addition to what government has already done to implement land restitution program, our government will reopen the lodgement date for claims and provide for the exception to the 1913 cut-off date to accommodate historical landmarks, heritage sites, and descendants of the Khoi and San who lost their land long before 1913. These amendments to our laws will take effect this year. There will be special programs to remember the injustices perpetrated under the 1913 Land Act. We call on all South Africans to commemorate this landmark with a view to correcting the wrongs of the past and to cement reconciliation. We appeal for cooperation between those needing land and those who must release land, both assisted by government, so that we can meet the targets we have set for redistribution and restitution. Compatriots, an important part of a developmental economy is the relationship between workers and employers. This relationship is underpinned by the right of workers to demand better wages and working conditions, and the right of employers to listen, put their views across, and engage in negotiations. The best forum for regulating labor relations has traditionally been formal bargaining structures. We cannot replace this system with informal arrangements by workers, as that is not sustainable and will disadvantage the workers. The right to strike and other labor rights are enshrined in the Constitution, and we urge role players to conduct themselves within the ambit of the Constitution. We call on workers not to undermine the right to strike or to protest by engaging in violent action which undermines their cause. We call on employers to enable workers to exercise their labor rights freely while exercising their own rights as employers, which are also enshrined in the Constitution. Compatriots, youth unemployment remains a major challenge in this country. The private sector, public sector, youth organizations, and trade unions must unite in action to address youth unemployment through broad, holistic interventions that do not jeopardize the jobs of existing workers or undermine workers' rights more generally. Given that the youth is the future of our country, we direct our government to expand vocational training, link skills development with industrial growth, and job creation, and extend support to the youth in accessing and developing skills. Comrades and friends, we will continue placing education and skills development at the center of our transformation and development agenda. Programs to expand access to education include the no-fee schools, school nutrition programs, expansion of early childhood development and grade R enrollments, as well as bursary and loan programs at further education and training colleges and universities. Improved teaching and learning environments in schools remain a priority. We reiterate the non-negotiables in education and call on teachers to be in school in class on time, teaching for at least 7 hours a day. We call on learners to dedicate themselves to their studies so that they become productive members of society. Given that education is a societal issue, we urge parents and the communities to participate in the day-to-day development of children and ensure the success of their schools. We congratulate the 2012 matric class and welcome the gradual improvements in matric results nationwide in our country. The ANC encourages teachers and learners to ensure an improved quality of the passes each year. The ANC is committed to the development of indigenous languages. We call on our government to make preparations for the introduction of the teaching of our indigenous languages by 2014. The ANC shall lead by example through being the champion of education and skills development in this phase of the revolution. We call on every branch and every ANC member to strive to improve the literacy rate and general level of education and skills among the people in their ward. They must also be involved in a project or program to improve the quality of learning and teaching in all schools in their areas. Comrades, the introduction of the National Health Insurance remains on track and plans are in place to introduce the NHI fund by next year. We call on all South Africans to embrace the NHI for better and affordable health care for all in our country. The ANC congratulates and thanks South Africans for the successes scored in the HIV and AIDS campaign since 2009. The rate of new infections has decreased. Mother-to-child transmission of HIV has also decreased by 50%. $1.7 million South Africans are on antiretroviral treatment. These measures and others have dramatically improved life expectancy. Last year, the Medical Research Council published research findings including that life expectancy in the country had risen to 60 years in 2011, up from 56.5 years in 2009 as fewer people died of AIDS. A major insurance company this week announced a 20% drop in life expectancy claims and attributed this development to government successes with the HIV and AIDS programs. We call on ANC members to work with communities to further promote the campaign. The ANC calls on government to improve the management of hospitals and welcomes the measures that are being put in place to employ qualified chief executive officers to ensure efficient healthcare provision in hospitals. Measures to improve efficiency will also include national government assuming responsibility for the management of academic hospitals directly attached to medical schools. Our hospitals must become centers of excellence, which are clean and efficiently managed. We call on all health professionals and workers to treat every sick person and their families with care, empathy, and professionalism. We also urge ANC members and all in society to become actively involved in campaigns against the abuse of alcohol, drugs, and other substances to promote healthy lifestyle. Comrades and compatriots, the ANC welcomes the progress that has been made in the fight against crime and corruption. We urge our institutions to continue their hard work and not to become complacent. We call on ANC membership to assist the police and the communities to combat violence against women and children, a crime that continues to afflict our society. We appeal to ANC members and society in general to remain vigilant and support the fight against corruption. Corruption is the enemy of development. It diverts resources meant for the poor. We must continue supporting law enforcement agencies, fight corruption, including the Chapter 9 institutions. Comrades, the ANC government will review the powers and functions of the three spheres of government to provide greater clarity on the roles and functions of each sphere, to promote interactive governance. We call on all ANC members of Parliament, legislatures and councils to report back to communities on the achievements of our government. We remind all ANC deployees that where infrastructure and resources exist to deliver services, there can be no excuse for these services not to be delivered. We now know where the gaps exist, and it is time to deliver the services that will improve the lives of our people. We call on our people to exercise their rights to protest against unsatisfactory service delivery in a peaceful and orderly manner as provided for in the Constitution. Comrades and friends, we shall take urgent and practical steps to deepen our contribution to the renewal of the African continent through actively supporting African Union programs and those of SADC and other AU structures. We shall continue to work with other progressive forces in the world to achieve a just and more equitable world order. We reaffirm support for the people of Western Sahara in their struggle for self-determination and independence, and continue to support the campaign for the release of the Cuban Five and the end of the blockade against Cuba. We remain unequivocal in supporting the Palestinian people in their struggle for self-determination and in the support of the two-state solution to the Palestinian-Israel question. We shall continue to pay attention to South-South cooperation and in particular relationships within India-Brazil South Africa grouping and the non-aligned movement. The ANC will start an awareness and educational program to deepen the understanding of the importance and relevance of BRICS among citizens and in civil society. We support the proposed establishment of the BRICS Bank of the benefit of South-South development cooperation, including Africa's development. We urge our government to ensure that the G20 discussions are focused on stabilizing the world economy and to realize a more equitable global economic system. We will promote Nelson Mandela Day across the continent and the world, given Comrade Nelson Mandela's role as a symbol of the ANC's commitment to a humane and caring society. Dear comrades, all these programs will require a strong, effective, and united African National Congress to execute them for the betterment of society. We reaffirm the character of the ANC as a disciplined force of the left, a multi-class mass movement, and an internationalist movement with an anti-imperialist outlook. Being non-racial in outlook and character, the organization will continue to have a bias towards the poor and the working class, the majority of whom are Black and African, until we have achieved equality and social economic freedom. The ANC will continue to promote unity within its ranks and amongst South Africans. We emphasized the importance of unity last year when we celebrated the centenary of our glorious movement. Indeed, unity is the rock upon which the ANC was founded, as President Mandela pointed out in a message sent to the ANC conference in Kabwe, Zambia in 1985. We call on all members to guard this unity jealously and to strengthen all the structures of the movement and the alliance in pursuit of socio-economic freedom. Comrades, the structures of the ANC and partners should continue playing their respective role in advancing the national democratic revolution. The ANC Women's League continues to be a critical voice in the fight for the emancipation of women. As said by Comrade O.R. Tambo, South Africa will not be truly liberated until the women of this country are liberated. The ANC Youth League remains an important and critical structure of the ANC. We shall work with the ANC Youth League to address its challenges and will empower the League to continue to live up to its proud legacy of being a preparatory school for ANC cadreship. The ANC Veterans League was established to reinforce our efforts to revive and strengthen our traditions, values, history, and unity. The ANC must do more to assist the Veterans League to fulfill this critical role. The Umkhonto weSizwe Veterans Association is an important structure within the ANC, representing men and women who were prepared to lay down their lives in defense of our people and for the attainment of freedom. The ANC will continue supporting our former combatants in their reintegration into society and to enable them to play a meaningful role in the organization. The ANC remains unwavering in its commitment to the alliance with the South African Communist Party and the Congress of South African Trade Unions. COSATU and the ANC must continue to work together, with the ANC playing its historical role as the shield and COSATU the spear, as pronounced by the President General of the ANC, Chief Albert Luthuli. The two organizations, plus the SACP, must continue to act in unison to defend and advance the interests of workers and the poor. The ANC, as the leader of the alliance, has the responsibility of providing revolutionary support to the alliance components. The SACP and COSATU, in turn, have a responsibility to strengthen and defend the ANC. The South African National Civic Organization is an important component of this broad mass democratic collective. Comrades, the ANC will develop a program of action based on the priorities finalized in Mangaung. This will entail developing programs to give effect to the decision that the next 10 years will be the decade of the cadre. We will revitalize all aspects of our cadre policy: recruitment, cadre development, deployment, accountability, as well as cadre preservation. The political education, general education, academic training, and skills development of the membership and leadership of the movement will receive priority attention over the next decade. ANC members will be required to have spent longer periods in the structures of the movement before they can become eligible for leadership positions. We took a decision in Mangaung that for a member of the ANC to qualify to be a member of the National Executive Committee, such a person will need to have served in the ANC continuously for 10 years in order to foster better understanding of the organization. We will build the ANC's capability to act truly as a strategic center of power organized along the pillars of transformation: the state, economy, and international work. We will build the ANC's capacity to act truly as a vanguard movement for transformation, leading a wide range of progressive social movements in struggles to change the legacy of apartheid colonialism. The program will also entail the revitalization and redesign of grassroots structures of the ANC and their reorganization so as to enable them to focus on solving the problems of the people. The ANC will mobilize the masses to take an active role in development and governance processes, ensuring that our people become their own liberators. We shall take urgent and practical steps to professionalize and modernize the operations of the ANC. Comrades, the ANC must continue to vigorously adhere to its core values and principles of unity, selfless service, collective leadership, democratic centralism, internal debate, humility, honesty, hard work, constructive criticism and self-criticism, discipline, and mutual respect. To maintain these core values, the movement must continuously prioritize organizational discipline and eradicate the alien tendencies that have crept into our movement over the years. These tendencies include factionalism, the violent disruption of our meetings and attacking other comrades, public spats, and unauthorized public utterances, the use of money to buy members, gatekeeping, and the manipulation of ANC processes for predetermined outcomes. We drew a line against ill discipline at the National General Council in 2010. Anyone who crosses that line will face the consequences. Conference directed that the NEC must develop a code of conduct booklet and circulate it to all branches. The NEC must also urgently develop the guidelines and constitute the Integrity Committee to promote ethics within the movement. We call on all ANC members to subject themselves to the discipline of the ANC. The ANC is the leader of society, and our behavior must always be beyond reproach. Comrades, working with all sectors of society, business, labor, women, youth, religious leaders, traditional leaders, non-governmental and community-based organizations, the ANC will continue working tirelessly to achieve a truly non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. We should remember, comrades, at all times that the ANC is the only organization capable of uniting the people of South Africa around a common vision of delivering a prosperous South Africa. We delivered freedom, and we will deliver prosperity and socio-economic freedom in our lifetime. Comrades, the ANC Annual Achievement Awards are initiated to promote a greater focus on the organizational tasks of building branches, strengthening local government, and building the leagues. The awards aim to highlight the features of strong branches and councils and to reward best practice within the movement. The awards are named after outstanding cadres of the ANC, whose individual qualities of commitment and selflessness are an example to every ANC member. We are pleased to announce the winners of the ANC Achievement Awards for 2013. The Sol Plaatje Award, conferred on the best performing ANC branch, goes to the Liliesleaf Farm branch in Gauteng. The Charlotte Maxeke Award, conferred on the best performing ANC Women's League branch, goes to the Yodwa Sokwaba branch in Mpumalanga. The Anthony Lembede Award, conferred to the best performing ANC Youth League branch, goes to the Toby Lebam branch, Walter Sisulu University, Eastern Cape. The Z.K. Matthews Award, conferred on the best performing group of ANC councillors, goes to the ANC councillors of the Richmond Municipality, Moses Mabhida region, KwaZulu-Natal. Comrades, we congratulate the winners on their hard work and commitment and trust that they will continue to be the best examples of the ANC. We salute all the comrades who passed on during 2012. May their soul rest in peace. Fellow South Africans, this month, South Africa will happily receive our brothers and sisters from the continent as we host the Africa Cup of Nations. We look forward to a successful and exciting tournament as we showcase Africa's best. We extend our best wishes to the national squad, Bafana Bafana, which we hope will surprise many as they prepare to do battle on the soccer field later this month. Comrades, the ANC carries the aspirations and hopes of millions of our people. As members of the ANC, let us cherish this privilege and place ourselves at the service of the South African people at all times. The NEC declares 2013 the year of unity in action towards socio-economic freedom. Amandla! Awethu! Matla! Ya rona! All power. All power. Siyabonga kakhulu, riyalebuka. Thank you.